Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be sharing with you how to cut this stylish corset with a different cup styling. We have our basic corset and also a Victorian corset. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button. Let's dive right into today's video. So now to draft out our pattern, I've gone ahead to mark out all my basic measurements, which includes my shoulder to bust, on the bust, waist, and for the top length I added 5 inches after my waistline. So now you want to go ahead and mark your shoulder divided by 2 and come down by 1 inch. Now I'm going to go ahead to connect my shoulder slope, but before I do that I'm going to go ahead to mark my basic neckline of 3 by 3 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead to place my tape and I will mark. Now I'll place my curved rule to connect to all those points, that is the 3 inches point at both sides, and I'll connect to draw my shoulder slope. From that point I'm going to get my chest line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So what I have on the shoulder, I will remark it at that point, then place my ruler and connect it down to that 7 inches point. So the next step is just to measure what you have from your bust to that your chest line point. Mine is about 1 inch, and I'll go ahead to place my ruler and I'm going to connect. So after I'm done connecting, I'll measure what I have on the armhole, divide it into 2, and I'll come in by half. Now I'll go down and mark my bust circumference divided by 4, and I'll place my French curve, connect from my bust circumference divided by 4 to the ½ inch and to the upper part of the shoulder. Now I'm just going to go ahead to use my marker to outline this. So next is to go ahead to mark your bust span divided by 2. So my bust span is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5, and I'm going to mark all the way to the lower part of my pattern. From my chest line I'll extend my cup by 1.5 inches and I will mark that same nipple to nipple divided by 2. Now I'm going to place my ruler and I'm going to connect, drawing down to my top length. So now I'll be marking 1 inch on both sides of my under bust, both sides of my waistline, and I'm going to connect, drawing a straight line. So you can decide to use a straight dart, or you can just go ahead to draw this out. So after I'm done drawing out, I'm going to use my marker to outline this so that it's going to be very visible for you to see. So after I'm done drawing this out, the next step is to go ahead to start working on the cup styling. Now I'll place my French curve or curved ruler this way and I'll connect down to my under bust. After doing that 1.5 inches I came up from the chest line, I'm going to place my curved rule and I'm going to draw out a straight line at that point. So for this pattern I'm going to be making use of a shoulder dart. So the remaining part of my shoulder, which does not have the neckline, I will measure and divide by 2. So the remaining part is 4 inches divided by 2. I have 2 inches. I'll go ahead to connect. So from this point, I'm going to place my tape and I'll be marking 2 inches for my shoulder dart. And from that point, I'm just going to connect it to the lower part. After that, I'll just go ahead to blend it out very well. That sharp point I have on top, I'll blend it out. So after I'm done doing this, I'm just going to replace these 2 inches and I'll mark it out, which is that 2 inches that I took out. I'll replace it because the other part I'll be cutting it out as a dart, and I would go ahead to blend it back to my shoulder. So this is what I have at that point, and I'm going to outline it to make it more visible for you to see. So after I'm done outlining, I'm just going to go ahead to blend out my shoulder, and I'll just mark the dart part just to indicate and so that you don't get confused. Now I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and I'll add my sewing allowance. At the under bust, I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the 2 inches dart intake, replace, and add your sewing allowance. So for a plus size, you're going to be using 1.5 inches for your dart. Now on the waistline, I'm going to mark my actual waist circumference divided by 4, and I'm going to measure the depth intake, which is 2 inches, replace and add my sewing allowance. At the hip point or at the top length, I'm going to mark my hip circumference divided by 4, and I'll add sewing allowance because I don't have any darts there, so I won't be adding any darts allowance. So now I'm just going to connect and I'm going to draw out my pattern. So next, I'm just going to go ahead to cut this out, and I'm going to transfer all the measurements I have on this part to the other side of the pattern. So after I was done tracing this out, this is what I have. So now we're going to go ahead to work on this pattern, and I'll be coming down by 3 inches on the waistline, and I'll also mark at the other side of the waistline. So to cut this out, I'm going to fold up my paper, and I'm going to make sure I make it flat because I need that center point to outline the cup. So now I'll just go ahead and cut this out. So it's either you come down by 3 inches from your waistline, or you just go up by 2 inches from the top length. So this is what I have, and we're going to go ahead to contour or alter this pattern. So now I'm going to go ahead to come down from my chest line this way, and I'm going to come in from the center part. So if you notice, we have like a center part on this pattern because we folded it. That would help you get the center point. So I'll go ahead and draw out my cup this way. So for the side part, I'm just going to blend it down to about 1/2 inch on the chest line. So now after you're done doing that, to draw your cup, you're going to go ahead to mark your nipple to nipple divided by 2, or your bust band divided by 2, and add 1/2 inch. So after you're done doing that, you're going to place your curved rule, and you're going to connect and draw out your cup. And on this side also, you're going to go ahead to connect your cup. So this is my cup A and this is my cup B. And for the rest of the pattern, so now to mark the other part of my pattern, from my chest line, I'm going to come up by 4.5 inches. So this totally depends on what you want. And from the center, I'm going to connect upwards, then blend this out and connect the other part to the armhole. So at the other side of my pattern, I'm just going to go ahead to connect it up this way and reconnect the other side. So this is what you have if you close up your pattern, and I'm just going to draw out the center line also. After that, I'll just go ahead and I will label my pattern. Now I'm going to be cutting this out, and at this point, if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and also leave your comment at the comment section. So after I was done cutting out my pattern, this is what I have. Next, we're going to go ahead to draft the back pattern of this dress. So here is my basic back pattern that I have already. So I marked out all my measurements just like we did for the front part. And for this part, I'll be marking my nipple to nipple or bust band divided by 2. After I'm done marking, I'm going to just go ahead to rule a straight line, and I'm going to be taking a dart intake of 1/2 inch on the waistline, come down by 1 inch, and I'm going to go ahead to extend this upwards. So after I'm done doing this, you're just going to go ahead to blend it down to your pattern this way. So after that, I'm just going to go ahead to insert my body measurement. Mark your bust circumference divided by 4 plus your sewing allowance. At the waist, go ahead to mark the waist circumference divided by 4. Measure the dart intake, mark, and add your sewing allowance. At the lower part, which is the top length, mark your hip circumference and add your sewing allowance. After you're done doing that, you're just going to use your curved rule to connect all your patterns together. So after you're done doing that, you're going to divide what you have at this point just to create an extra style line for this part, and just going to go ahead to rule it out. So next, You want to go ahead and create the lacing bar area. I'll be using 1.5 inches, so this 1.5 is not a standard. You can use more than 1.5 inches, and I'll just go ahead to connect all the way down. So after that, I'll just make a dot to indicate that it's the lacing bar, and I'm going to come down by ½ inch here and connect it all the way up. After connecting that, I'm going to use my marker to outline it. So at the waistline, I'll be marking ½ inch of both sides, and after that, I'm just going to go ahead to connect my dart. Now I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, and I will be adding my sewing allowance to that. So after I'm done doing that, just go ahead to mark about 2 inches upwards, and you're going to connect it. So I'm just going to go ahead to label my pattern this way, and I'll cut out the rest of my pattern. So if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. So after I'm done cutting out, this is what I have. I'll cut out this dart. So at the lower part again, I'm just going to go up by 1 inch again, making it a total of 2 inches, and this is what my back pattern looks like. So if you have not yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button and join us in our next video. Thanks.